No, no,
No, okay.
this is very small. Yes.
I got it. That's too, anyway, it's too low. Spend too much time now with, okay. Maharaj Prasad Stotra Sapta Sri Simad His Divine Grace Srila Bhai Charanara and Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki
Jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki
Jai.
Nandiviti Founder Srila Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki
Jai.
Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki
Jai.
Samava Bhakti Vrinda Ki
Jai.
Hari Nam Sankirtan Ki
Jai.
Grantaraj Bhagavatam Ki
Jai.
Jai Thai Golda
Hari Hari Bol.
all ladies to be assembled
Hare
devotees, all ladies to be assembled devotees, all ladies to be assembled devotees, all ladies to Sri Guru to Sri Gauranga, all ladies to Sri Guru. Om Adhyanatirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Taksurimritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Sakitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupadhanahim Dadati Svasadhantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Gita Paratamam Sri Guru Vaishnavansya Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Gannatam Hitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sarvabhutam Sahitam Krishnayatam Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalitam Sri Vishakam Vidam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Namami Hari Priya Vansakavadurudesya Upasindhu Evacha Haridanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Daiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, the series of the means of conquest, let us first offer a respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayana Rishi, the Supremost Living Being, unto Mother Saraswati, the Goddess of Wisdom, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayasabhadreshu
Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Bhagavati Tamasloke
Bhagavati Tamasloke
Bhagavati Naistiki
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki.
This, by regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically at nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama
Idam Bhagavatam Nama
Puranam Brahmasamitam
Puranam Brahmasamidam
Namasloka Charitam
Uttama Sloke Charitam
Chakara Bhagavan Rishi
Chakara Bhagavan Rishi
Nishreyasaya Lokasya
Nishreyasaya Lokasya
Dhanyam Swasthaya Namaha
Dhanyam Swasthaya Namaha.
This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya
Sri Krishna Chaitanya
Prabhu Nityananda
Prabhu Nityananda
Sri Advaita Gadadhara
Sri Advaita Gadadhara
Sri Vasavi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Sri Vasavi Gaur
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya,
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 Om Saradhyaya Namaha,
Om Surabhyaya Namaha,
Om Saradhyaya Namaha,
Om Surabhyaya Namaha,
Om Saradhyaya Namaha,
Om Surabhyaya Namaha.
Mukham karoti vasaram tvangam langayate girim yakripa tamaham bande Shri Gurum Vinataram yakripa tamaham bande Shri Gurum Vinataram. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Welcome to our Bhagavatam class. Continuing from Canto 7, Chapter 2, entitled Hiranyakashipu, King of the Demons. And we're reading we read 15, I think.
16.
Okay, 15, 15. So get to the 16. Text 16. Evam viprakrite loke daitya indra anucharai muhu divam devah parityaja bhuvi Sherur alakshitah evam viprakrite loke Daityendra nusharair muhu divam deva parityajya bhuvi cherur alakshitah evam viprakrite loke Daityendra nusharair muhu divam deva parityajya bhuvi cherur alakshitah evam viprakrite loke Daityendra nucharair muhu divam deva parityajya bhuvi cherur alakshitah
एवं विप्रकृते लोके दैत्येन्द्रानुचरैर्मुहुः दिवं देव परित्याज्य भुवि चेरुरलक्षितः
एवं विप्रकृते लोके दैत्येन्द्रानुचरैर्मुहुः दिवं देवः परित्यज्य भुवि चेरुरलक्षितः एवं विप्रकृते लोके दैत्येन्द्रानुचरैर्मुहुः Divam deva parityajya bhuve charuralakshitaha
एवं विप्रकृते लोके
evam viprakrute loke daityendраनुचरैर्मुहुः
दिवं देवा परित्यज्य
दिवं देवः परित्यज्य
भुवि चेरुरलक्षिताः
भुवि चेरुरलक्षिताः
एवं thus viprakrite
viprakrute
being disturbed loke again and again divam the heavenly planets devaha the demigods parityaja giving
up
bhuvi on the planet earth cheruhu wandered to see the extent of the disturbances alakshitaha unseen by the demons. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Thus disturbed again and again by the unnatural occurrences caused by the followers of Hiranyakashipu, all the people had to cease the activities of Vedic culture. Not receiving the results of Jagya, the demigods also became disturbed. They left their residential quarters in the heavenly planets and, unobserved by the demons, began wandering on the planet Earth to see the disasters. Kindly repeat after me. Thus disturbed. Again and again. By the unnatural occurrences. Caused by the followers. Of Hiranyakashipu. All the people. Had to cease the activities. Of Vedic culture. Not receiving the results of Jagya. The demigods also became disturbed. They left their residential quarters. In the heavenly planets. And unobserved by the demons. Began wandering on the planet Earth. To see the disorders. To see the disasters. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the performance of Jagya brings reciprocal good fortune for both the human beings and the demigods. When the performances of Jagya were stopped by the disturbances of the demons, the demigods were naturally bereft of the results of Jagya and hampered in executing their respective duties. Therefore, they came down to the planet Earth to see how people had become disturbed and to consider what to do. There are a few texts actually following which don't have purport. That's further explained what is taking place. So we can just read those. 3 such texts in number 17, 18, and 19. Hiranyakashipura bhaktu samparetasya dukkitah kritva ko kato lakadini Bhratrir Putram Asant Vayat. Translation to text 17. After performing the ritualistic observances of the death of his brother, Hiranyakashipu, being extremely unhappy, tried to pacify his nephews. Text 18 and 19. Shakunim Shambaram Dristim Bhutasanta Anam Vrikam Kalanabham Mahanabham Harish Mashrum Athot Kachan Dang Mataram Rusha Bhamim Ditim Cha Jananim Gira Shakshnaya Desha Kalajna Idam Aha Janishvara. Translation. O King, Hiranyakashipu was extremely angry, but since he was a great politician, he knew how to act according to the time and situation. With sweet words, he began pacifying his nephews, whose names were Shakuni, Shambara, Vristi, Bhutasam, Tapana, Vikka, Kalanabha, Mahanabha, Harishmasru, and Utkacha. He also consoled their mother, his sister-in-law, Rushabhanu, as well as his own mother, Diti. He spoke to them all as follows. So we'll leave the next text for tomorrow, since it begins another section here. So in the text here, it clearly mentions that due to the nefarious activities of the demons, the people could no longer perform the regular activities of Jagya. Vedic culture is based on performance of daily Jagya. As a matter of fact, those who are meant to be the natural leaders in society, namely the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, and the Vaishyas, one of their daily duties is to actually perform Jagya. And all of the citizens are also directed, although the vast majority of citizens will not directly perform Jagya, but they will attend functions in a temple, for example, and will perform various kinds of religious activities. So due to the disturbances caused by the followers of Hiranyakashipu on his order, so in other words, as Prabhupada pointed out a few days back when we were reading, this is actually the formula for destroying the Vedic culture, which is being referred to here. Of course, by understanding the formula to destroy the Vedic culture, we can also understand the formula to reestablish the Vedic culture. And that is the primary purpose of the Lord when He descends in the material world, and that is the primary purpose of those who are understanding what is the mission. Dharma samstapanasaya sambhavami yuge yuge. That is the primary and actually only mission of the Lord, and therefore that is also meant to be our primary goal, or primary mission, and primary activity in life. So here it mentions that because the people were no longer performing their duties in terms of Jekya, then this had we could say, a rippling effect, and that effect went right up to the heavenly planets, demigods also, because demigods are a little bit attached to receiving remnants of jagyas that are performed. There's a whole natural system that is there. Of course, when one becomes, we're reminded of the pastime of Krishna, who stopped the jagya performance to Indra. But that was for a higher purpose, not to perform demoniac activities. So that needs to be understood. Performance of jagya to demigods becomes secondary when one is performing a higher activity, which is pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That verse was also quoted a few days back. Samsiddhi Haritoshanam. The highest perfection is to actually come to the point of pleasing or satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada also points out how by performance of jagya, and of course we all know the special and primary jagya that is meant to be performed today means in Kali Yuga, at this present time, is the performance of Harinam. That is the topmost jagya, Sankirtan jagya. We as devotees, we specialize in Sankirtan jagya. We specialize in Sankirtan jagya, but not to the neglect of other duties and responsibilities. So that is meant to be the focus, Sankirtan jagya, the chanting of the holy name, and therefore when the chanting of the holy name is performed, naturally, because that is especially pleasing to the Supreme Lord, other living entities will also benefit, and the demigods will also be satisfied. So in this way we get some insight as to how destructive are adharmic activities, and what kind of a chain reaction it can cause. So in the purport, Prabhupada makes the point in the very beginning that performance of jagya is actually a must or a necessity, even though we may not fully understand. It is a necessity that brings benefit both to human beings on the planet, and also brings benefit to the demigods, who are meant to administer the, we could say, the management of the affairs of the universe. So it means that actually by understanding about dharma, by performing the various prescribed duties and responsibilities, not only this will bring, let's say, a spiritual benefit to those who are performing such activities, but also there will be, just like in the Bhagavatam, that section where the activities of Lord Ramachandra are described. It's very clearly describing that during the time of the reign of Lord Ramachandra, where people naturally were all engaged in dharmic activities, performing yagyas, etc., there was complete peace and harmony within the society, and there was not even any presence of disease at that time. Everything was very, very regulated, and it describes how it's like now it's daytime, not supposed to rain in the day. In Vedic culture, when things are regulated, it rains only at nighttime. So we can understand that we are far from following the Vedic culture. There are over the years, especially, and these can be calculated actually by scientists. Mother Bhumi, also reference being made here. Mother Earth, she becomes disturbed, and because we are abusing. It's just like if somebody starts to pounce on us or starts to beat us, we will feel the pain that is there, and in a similar manner, the natural resources. What happens is that Mother Bhumi, same thing happened actually with our dearmost King Vena, we all recall. King Vena, who was in the category of Hiranyakashipu, same family mentality. He stopped also. There's a very clear-cut parallel that we can make between Hiranyakashipu and King Vena, because he was born of a demoniac mentality, although his father was very dedicated to dharma. But there's some kind of, one could trace back when something dharmic had been performed, and it comes back. I mean, everything comes back to us eventually when we don't follow dharma. So because he had stopped the performance of yajna as well, etc., then Mother Bhumi actually stopped producing. There was no food production at the time, and of course, without going into that story, we know that the Brahmanas eventually had to, so to speak, take things in their own hands. And they performed a special yajna or chanted particular mantras which ended the reign of King Vena. So in other words, everything is centered, should be centered, must be centered on dharma, which is nicely explained also by, in this same canto, Kritam cha tadidam rajam yena chatma prasidati. These are words spoken by Narada Muni actually to Yudhishthira Maharaj, whereby he explains nicely that the daily meditation or the daily remembrance, the primary activity for someone who's a devotee is to be remembering that he's a devotee, to be remembering matters of dharma, to be remembering what I should be doing, and to remember what is the primary goal of life, and ultimately, of course, to remember Krishna, isn't it? Ante Narayana Smriti. The Bhagavatam also explains how the perfection of life, ante, at the end of life, is to remember Narayana, to remember Krishna ultimately. And that is more easily accomplished, more easily possible when we practice naturally during our life on a daily basis. So therefore, it is not only those who are, let's say, sannyasis or those who are brahmanas who are meant to fully commit themselves, let's say, to dharma. It is actually the duty and responsibility of each and every individual, including grihasthas. Although grihasthas may sometimes present different reasons or they are in many ways in a kind of a challenging situation due to various duties and responsibilities, and therefore there are very nice and important instructions given especially for householders, because householders also are part of ashram. So in this way, it's very wonderful that the whole Vedic culture, from Brahmachari ashram to sannyas ashram, in between there are two other ashrams, Grihastha ashram, Vanaprastha ashram, means always ashram. Ashram means where one is focused on spiritual activities. So it means that even from these very horrible activities instigated by Hiranyakashipu, Srila Prabhupada is taking out and bringing out important dimensions or aspects of our Vedic culture and how important it is for us to perform these dharmic activities, these yajnas. Anyway, this is still in the beginning of this particular chapter. I think it goes on. Hiranyakashipu is just in the beginning. It's still in the early stage of what we will be doing. For example, very long chapter actually goes up to 61 verses. And then the next chapter will be Hiranyakashipu plans to become immortal, like that. Then Hiranyakashipu terrorizes the universe. In other words, this is just the beginning of all of the terrible activities that will be performed by Hiranyakashipu. Let me read that text again, and let's see. So this was text 16. Thus, disturbed again and again by the unnatural occurrences caused by the followers of Hiranyakashipu, all the people had to cease the activities of Vedic culture. Actually, when I was reading that first sentence, I think all of us can be thinking of the present modern situation where due to similar kind of situation, those especially who are devoid or not having Vedic knowledge, they're not able to perform, and even amongst our own devotees, it is difficult to perform the even basic activities that are meant to be performed within a daily culture. And then the text continues, not receiving the results of yajna, the demigods also became disturbed. They left their residential quarters in the heavenly planets and, unobserved by the demons, began wandering on the planet Earth to see the disasters. So any comments or questions on this? Yes.
Why the Supreme Lord gives these demons so much power?
Why
Maharaj, even nowadays, no, all the people who are the wrongdoers have a lot of power.
Good question, huh? Krishna is very kind. He fulfills the desires of everyone. And it's all part of a big plan as well that, I was just hearing a lecture by Srila Prabhupada, who is, actually in the very early days, when introducing the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada was telling that if there is a demon, if there's somebody that's attacking you, either verbally or physically or whatnot, you should understand that actually you've done something wrong. Nothing happens without a reason, isn't it? When we don't have understanding of dharma, we naturally react in the wrong way by blaming that person. This is not just, for no reason he's attacking me. For no reason something bad is happening to me. But when we cultivate this knowledge, Vedic knowledge, the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, we understand that actually the laws of nature are very stringent, very severe, the law of karma in particular, and that whatever so-called bad things that are happening to us, through the agents of these different demoniac personalities, this is part of the whole, we could say, drama that is taking place in the material world. The material world is a very unpleasant place where people, actually all of us, we identify, we're speaking now of course of Hiranyakashipu, referring to him as a demon. However, we also need to understand, and in one lecture Prabhupada was nicely elaborating on this, that anyone and everyone who comes in the material world, although he doesn't really think about it, is a criminal. It was a wonderful lecture that Prabhupada was mentioning, whereby he was stating every single individual, up to Lord Brahma, is a criminal. And then Prabhupada was saying, you might be surprised to hear that Lord Brahma is a criminal. So the idea is that all living entities who have come in the material world, they have abandoned Krishna. And they have therefore become impure in consciousness. And some are more, some are bigger criminals than others. Like the story of Alexander the Great that Prabhupada speaks about, who caught a thief, and the thief was telling the thief, actually, Alexander the Great wanted to punish that thief who had maybe stolen something, not so serious, and the thief was an intelligent thief, as very often some thieves will be, and he argued that, listen, you're going around conquering and stealing all of these different countries and nations and whatnot, so you're also a thief. You're a big thief, I'm a small thief. But we're both thieves. So, Alexander the Great was very happy to hear his, was impressed by his explanation, and he let him go, because we belong to the same group. So we're all criminals actually in the material world. And when we become devotees, we begin to understand how we have acted in such a way that we are reaping the results, and not only we, everyone in the material world is reaping the results of previous bad activities. So we can just imagine, I mean, the kind of atrocities that are taking place, the kind of suffering that people are having to experience, the kind of suffering that animals nowadays especially are experiencing. This is all intimately woven within karmic reaction. Of course, we understand as devotees that the only solution to bring about changes or to put an end to such suffering is by giving knowledge, by giving an opportunity for people to stop their sinful activities. And because we have all performed sinful activities in the past, being here in the material world, we have to tolerate the fact that we're getting the reactions now. So therefore the argument that very often ordinary people will give, why do bad things happen to good people, and why do good things happen to bad people? For us, it's not a problem, it's not an issue, because there is no such thing as a good person in the material world. We're all criminals, as Prabhupada explains and as mentioned in the Shastra. So we should also understand that because we're in Kali Yuga is that period in history where more demoniac activities are taking place, and therefore people are again receiving the results of their previous activities, and therefore we should become enthusiastic in giving to people, providing to people the proper information so that they can do two things: stop engaging in sinful activities that will continue giving them reactions, and secondly, giving them the proper understanding that they can more easily tolerate these different situations that are there. That's why when someone becomes a devotee, sometimes people falsely conclude or think that if somebody is now a devotee and chanting, especially after many years, nothing bad should happen to you. Why are still bad things happening to devotees? And Prabhupada actually gave a nice example. After leaving his family life, taking vanaprastha, and then shortly after taking sannyas. So Prabhupada is in his 60s now. He's lived his whole life. He's very clear on his mission. He's taken sannyas. And so after taking sannyas, one day, I'm not sure if this happened in Delhi or in Vrindavan, because Prabhupada was going very often to print his Bhakti Godhead magazine and to prepare his Bhagavatam, first canto of the Bhagavatam, in preparation to go to the West. So one day Prabhupada, after taking sannyas, he was hit by a cow or a bull. And Prabhupada writes, he said, I couldn't understand, on the spot, hey, I'm the sannyas. So that is the first kind of reaction we have. I'm a devotee. And of course we know that Krishna arranges different situations for different living entities, including different devotees. Some devotees leave their bodies surrounded by loving devotees and hearing the holy name.
Yes.
Other devotees, they leave their body, nobody around. You know, it's like, there's so many examples are there, I'm sure it comes to mind right away. So, as the saying goes, we cannot understand or fathom the workings, how the Lord arranges things. But ultimately, we know as devotees that which should be of great comfort to all of us, as soon as we actually make that even first step, that initial step to surrender to Krishna. It is nicely explained by our acharyas. Krishna takes personal charge. From that moment, Krishna takes personal charge of us, you see. And therefore we should not fear, regardless of what may happen, because Krishna, he is there. Whereas if someone has not taken that first step, well, he remains on the lap of Maya, and Maya is sometimes quite severe, So that nice example, of course, is given also of the mother cat carrying the kitten. The kitten feels very comfortable, even though he's in the mouth of, in between the teeth of his mother, but it's his mother, no fear. But the rat has different feelings, or the mouse, because he knows that he's in the jaws of death. Whereas a devotee, he's protected by the Lord. Yeah? Any other comment?
Maharaj, I have one small question.
Yeah.
Sometimes in the course of our service, we are exposed to various situations where we deal with a lot of devotees. So there could be some difficult things where we have to really decide and solve. So at that point of time, should we think that Krishna is purifying us and also giving us different situations for us to solve, and he's testing us? How should we see that?
So your question is that for devotees, they are at times put into different kinds of situations. Should we see that as that Krishna is testing us in different ways like that? Yeah, we are being tested definitely in different ways. It is nicely explained that Krishna will at times put seemingly very difficult, put his devotees in apparently seemingly very difficult situations, and the explanation is given that two things. One is Krishna will never put a devotee in a situation that he cannot overcome. That's one thing. Krishna is not just like playing with us, so to speak, or trying to smash us. Whatever comes our way is definitely arranged and sanctioned by Krishna, and if we are nicely cultivating Krishna consciousness, and if we pray to Krishna, take more shelter of Krishna at that time, then we will have what is needed to kind of meet up the challenge of that particular situation. That's one thing. The other thing is that it is also explained that Krishna provides or gives these different tests to his devotees to actually glorify his devotees, who will be able to, by his mercy ultimately, come out of these kind of difficult situations. Yeah. So we should have that understanding, and of course we may not always ourselves be able to, let's say, completely understand, or even maybe by ourselves be able to find the proper, let's say, means or solution. Therefore, it is recommended at times to consult, for example, with other senior Vaishnavas who can possibly give some insights that may not be there or immediately obvious, let's say, to us. But that's important to understand that Krishna is not out to destroy us. Rather the opposite. He's endeavoring in so many ways, including those seemingly very challenging or difficult situations in which we may find ourselves, to actually come to a higher platform or a higher level like that. It's just like, the surgeon, he'll do horrible things to our body sometimes. I mean, with a knife, when you have to operate, you'll draw blood, right?
Yeah.
So seemingly that's not a very good thing, but he's doing that for a higher purpose, and we come out a more healthy individual. Yeah. Okay.
We have time, Maharaj.
Yes. Yes. Class may not be, yeah. Right.
It's something related to what Mataji asked actually. Sometimes we are doing some seva. Either we take it up voluntarily. For spiritual activities, initially it's a voluntary activity.
Sometimes we're doing some seva.
Yeah, seva.
Yeah.
In fact, spiritual activities are generally voluntary. There's no imposition unless we come to a higher understanding.
Right.
But then there are some differences. Is it right to go into inaction, or should we persist with the activity? Actually, suppose there are some differences.
Right.
Should we go into inaction? Completely stop action actually.
Go into inaction.
Inaction.
Okay.
Or persist with the action actually.
Or persist with the action. It depends on what action you want to get into.
At least it's in line with the Guru Sadhana Shastra. At least that.
In line with Guru Sadhana Shastra. Well, if I understand the question correctly, is that when we are faced with certain situations that may be seemingly like not obvious or not immediately easy to resolve, should we just go become inactive, or should we just continue to pursue?
Yes.
Yeah. I would say that it depends on the situation, because sometimes it's good to just wait for some time. The time factor is Krishna, right? Krishna is Kala. And at times, what seems to be like an impossible task or situation, if we give it a few more minutes or a few more hours or a few more days, it will resolve by itself, It definitely depends on the situation, and so therefore sometimes it is necessary and good to consult in this particular situation. Should I just keep it on hold, so to speak, or should I just because certain things, if the time is not ripe, some things will just not happen.
Yes.
It's like all of us, we hear the accounts of devotees, how they came to Krishna consciousness. And it's like, many of us might have come across a devotee before, or might have had some opportunity, and looking back we'll say, my God, I should have I should have done something there at that time, and I would have joined earlier, and I would have been initiated by Prabhupada, and if only I would have been born earlier. Well, so the idea is that there are certain things that the time factor just has to be ripe for us to understand or for us to take certain kind of actions. Of course, there's also a danger to just sitting on the fence and just waiting unnecessarily too long. That also is not good. So, each situation has to be. That's why we hear so often this aspect of Kala Desha Patra, right? According to time, place, and circumstance, and not everyone immediately can become expert in handling these three aspects. But as devotees, we should learn to, and of course, that can only come by Krishna's blessings, that we become more expert. And until that becomes more natural for us to handle, then we can take some help or some guidance from other devotees.
I just enrolled for this course actually.
Oh, here we go. Now he's going to go. So.
And I just want to.
You enrolled for which course?
ISKCON Resolve is organizing
ISKCON Resolve,
conflicts and mediation approach, which I think
Okay.
the
And
world over.
immediately you have a conflict.
I was trying to apply those principles and trying to resolve some of these issues. It's a very, very nice that every leader or aspiring leader should be joining this course, because
Right.
world over now everybody is trying for this mediation and reconciliation, or because courts are taking very long time and issues are getting prolonged. Even the Supreme Court is also, Indian Supreme Court, because there are piles of cases, so they are also approaching this mediation.
Yeah.
But then when I participate in the course, it is really an eye-opener for me that so many efforts are going to reconcile, mediation through mediation, and so many conflicts happens actually.
Yes.
And on spiritual plane, we think that there are no conflicts actually.
Right.
But on spiritual plane, the conflicts are, it's something sometimes.
We have to consider whether you say on the spiritual, of course, on the spiritual level, on the spiritual platform, there will be differences, but let's say serious conflicts that may arise may simply due to the fact that we are lacking in Krishna conscious, development. Yeah. So, in other words, the more we are purified in our consciousness, the more we are advanced in Krishna consciousness, there should be less conflict. There should be less conflict. But of course, it's Kali Yuga, the age of conflict, the special age of increased conflict, and the actual solution is to actually increase and heighten our level of clear consciousness, isn't it? Because conflict will come when there is blurred or impure consciousness. It means, the ego. I mean, the subtle, it comes down to ego, isn't it? Yeah. And so conflict means two egos are clashing. Right. Yeah. Okay. We will close now. Thank you very much. Jai International Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Jai Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaura Premanand.
Holy Bhakti Raghava Swami Maharaj ki
Jai.
Yes. All from upstairs?
It's
Different place.
downstairs.
Okay. Yeah. So, you proceed. When did you start that course?
It's ongoing. It's 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Yeah, it's weekly one.
It's a 6-week course.
Yeah.
Okay.
Weekly only one.
When did you start?
This is about August.
When it will end?
In fact, 2 weeks there has been a break because of festivals. So this coming Tuesday is the last.
How many people are taking the course?
What about 150?
150.
Yeah. Only at the managers. In fact, they were filtering the entrance itself, admission. They give only allowing only managers or persons holding some positions in this.
You mean 150 after filtering?
He is representing our IDM.
So I could actually say that
You could join